Hello there, Adam Bazalgette here, founder of SW Golf Academy. Today, the secrets to hitting powerful, consistent drives in golf. Who doesn't want that? There's a hidden killer we'll touch on at the beginning of the video that it just really makes it almost impossible to achieve those things. Then we'll look at two of the big keys to overcoming that, and finally we'll get into the swing, give you some simple, easy to implement keys I think will help you get on your way and make progress. So we talked about hidden killers or a hidden killer in the opening. Before we get into the swing, which is what most of the video will be about, trying to make a good swing, solid contact is crucial if you're ever going to see consistency or distance. And I think it's a lot more critical than maybe you think. Let me show you very briefly a close-up of the club head and some factors you may not be aware of. Not to scare you, but just to tell you this is important, then we'll get into the swing. So here's the middle of the driver face on my driver. Now these white marks are from the middle to the outside of those is right about an inch. If you hit the ball an inch off center, it is estimated, more than estimated, launch monitor data proves it, 10% loss of yardage. Let's say you're a fairly long hitter and instead of 250 yards, instead of contact there, it's there 25 yards off your drive. So it's crucial. The other thing, of course, is when you get mishits, if you look at the club face here, if you hit it a bit towards the toe, it twists the face, sapping energy, adding hook spin in this case, the opposite for the heel, saps energy, adds fade spin. Top to bottom won't so much affect your direction, but if you hit it off the bottom, much too much backspin, you won't get much distance there. A little high of center is okay, but up and around the top, you get a big skyball. So solid contact is crucial. It will destroy a shot, even if the swing's decent. Okay, so how are we going to go about solid contact? Well, certainly two of the biggest keys, at least in my book. One would be simplicity. That club, if it moves in a nice, efficient way from top to bottom or from top of the backswing back to the ball, it is so much easier. So many golfers, the club's out of position. Instinctively, they correct for it. Now they have to recorrect. The club's all over the place. Their body's reacting to it. Pretty difficult to dial in solid contact when you do that. And the other thing I would say would be a big key on this, and that is, and it relates to the simplicity of the plane, you need a nice long level run up to the ball with a driver, nothing that's chopping down. Number one, hitting a little bit up on the ball or at least level is going to give you more distance. But secondly, if your plane is simple and you've got a good level spot, it's just so much easier to start to match the middle of the club face. And another thing, when you're out of position and you don't have the level spot, most times someone's hiking their arms or active with their wrist trying to solve it. So nice simplicity, nice level spot. Let's have a look at a pro, get a feel for that, then we'll work on it. Aaron Badley on the left, Julieta Granada LPGA on the right. These are old videos from my early Leadbetter years. Let's look at a simple backswing here. You couldn't get much better than this. Just beautifully moved to the top. Let's look at her hands there. Let's look at her hands at the top and do that one more time. A to B. A to B. Just beautiful. Club in balance. Club set properly. Nothing complicated. Aaron on the right there. Lovely flow of his pivot and the club movement and his wrist cock and everything times up well at the top of the backswing. That makes life a lot easier. Hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel if you like the videos here. Hit the bell, you'll be notified every time a new one's coming your way. And appreciate it. So simplicity, a little easier to talk about than to do, but you saw the pro there, how nice that works. Here's one of my favorite drills. I picked this up from Fred Shoemaker, who I'm a big fan of. Been lucky enough to mentor a bit under him. Assuming you're right-handed as a right-handed golfer, if you hold back to throw something, throw a rock or a stone with a big backswing, you'd have a pretty good sense of where to get to, and you would get there in one go. Your brain in everyday life doesn't do this sort of stuff. If you reach for a coffee cup, do you make loops and go off balance? You go straight there. So here's the drill. Get back in there, wherever that spot is you feel like you could throw it. We'll touch on one other thing here in a second. Put your other hand back there. I can't reach it, so I have to bring that in. That becomes my spot right there. That's my spot, and I have to learn that spot. And as I said, with the brain, it can get there very efficiently in one keen go there. So let's try it with a club. Get set up here. Here's my spot. I'm going to choke up a little bit so I can move the club. And I start to memorize that to where, wham, I can get there in one go. Critical when you do this, get some engagement. If I was really going to throw a rock as far as I could, I'd feel very stored with energy here. It's not like I'd have a huge turn. I'd have some turn, but I'd really feel energized there. So incorporate that into this when you're working on that. Map that top of the backswing spot in. Your downswing is likely to be on a good plane if you get that right. Let's look from here at some downswing ideas. So two of the most common mistakes I see in the downswing regards the driver power and getting on plane, if you like. And number one, people aren't dynamic enough. There's not enough buildup of energy and transfer of energy out to the golf club. They don't really create that much whip in the club. They work hard, but you don't see that. We're going to get into that momentarily here. The second thing is, if they are dynamic, in other words, they get their body to lead and cause some loading of the shaft, if you like, they don't decelerate. They don't transfer energy from them out to the golf club enough. They pull on the club, get off plane. They don't get it to pop properly. Now, let me briefly show you, we'll work on this, a pro versus a typical amateur that has these common characteristics. You'll see the difference, then we'll get out and we'll work on it. Tiger Woods there on the left in his earlier days, and a typical amateur golfer on the right. So here we go, top of the backswing. Now we'll look at the change of direction. Watch his hips. Watch how they snap into motion independently of the club. They don't move a long way, but they move dynamically and quickly. And look in his upper back and wrists, how that causes a loading of the club. So now he's got it really loaded. Much more common would be this look, where the golfer, basically the club, arms, hips, trunk, everything kind of comes together. So the club springs away from the body. So there's much less stored energy. And if following that, what we have to do is release the energy. Now watch how the club head snaps past his body there, and you'll see with the typical player how the upper trunk just keeps pulling, the left arm drags and drags the club on and on a little bit. And so if we look at that from the other view, most typically what you'll get, and we'll stick with Tiger Woods for just a second, is not only a loss of power, but instead of the club really slotting and getting close to that right, visually close to that right arm and right side coming down, the club tends to get pulled out towards the golf ball and over the top and drags across it a little bit. Oh, I would take that one any day. It's a good one for me. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how to do this. Now, before we get going here in terms of how to transfer energy, just quickly, your grip is a huge factor, especially this lead hand. You have to have it down in your fingers enough that you can create pretty good mobility with it. It has to be, there's different ways to do it, but it has to be wrapped over enough for you that you can square the club consistently. We're not going to deal with that. There's a number of grip videos here at Scratch Golf Academy you might want to check out, but let's get into our motion here. Here's a great way to feel something. You've probably seen this drill on the TV or on the computer. Put your lead hand up on the top of your driver head, about opposite my front instep. Toss a ball under there. That will give you a sense of the resistance that so many people lack in their left side as you go through. You saw that chap on the video just spinning his left side open. And then start to do that with a little bit more energy. Small scale. If I really had to toss it, I can feel some transfer of energy. This would be an example here. If I really had to whip that, or in a golf setting, get that thing out there in a hurry, I can feel some transfer of energy, some momentum building, and the energy transferring out there to the whip or the club, as the case may be. Now you have to, again, you have to mix. You can't work on everything every time. So I'm going to suggest for you, at times you just work that backswing. We talked about that earlier in the video. At times you work on that, and then without much speed, a little bit of resistance, a sense of the long level spot, the simplicity, if you like. At times crank the power up. So maybe you do a small one, pop it a little bit, then you get a little more adventurous, make a bigger swing, see if you can create some energy and go up and down the scale. Ground zero again, got to have a good simple plane, a good sense of the approach to the ball. If you'll do these things though and make more centered contact, which I'm convinced you will, I think you're going to have some success. Hope this helps.